The transport ship shuddered as it entered the docking bay of Apex Guard Academy. Maya Chen pressed her face against the small window, watching the massive station grow larger. Her stomach twisted with nervousness. This was it. The most elite military academy in the entire galaxy around her, the other cadets prepared to disembark. They were nothing like her. To her left sat a Krellivian warrior, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin that looked like natural armor. His muscles bulged beneath his uniform. To her right, a Vexian cadet checked her equipment with 4 arms, each one stronger than both of Maya's combined. Behind her, a Velen hunter stretched. His sleek body built for speed, and his eyes, capable of seeing in complete darkness. And then there was Maya. Human, 1.6 meters tall. No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no special abilities. Just a human woman who had somehow qualified for a program designed for the galaxy's warrior species. The transport doors opened. Maya grabbed her small bag and followed the others out. The docking bay was enormous. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of species filled the space. The air buzzed with different languages and the sound of heavy footsteps. "Make way." Someone shouted. Maya barely had time to step aside before a group of Krellivian warriors pushed past her. One of them bumped her shoulder, sending her stumbling. He didn't even look back. To him, she probably wasn't worth noticing. "Cadets, form up." The voice boomed across the bay. Maya hurried to find her place in the formation. She ended up in the back row, surrounded by beings twice her size. An instructor walked along the lines, inspecting each cadet. He was a Thros, a reptilian species known for their tactical brilliance. His cold eyes scanned each recruit. When he reached Maya, he stopped. His eyes narrowed. "Human," he said slowly. "How? ... Interesting." Maya stood straighter, meeting his gaze. She refused to show fear. "What is your name, cadet?" "Maya Chen, sir." "Maya Chen." He repeated her name like he was tasting something bitter. "Do you know the survival rate of this academy, Maya Chen?" 40%, sir. 40% for warrior species. Species bred for combat. Species with natural advantages. He leaned closer. "What advantages do you have, human?" Maya's jaw tightened. "I'll find out, sir." The instructor stared at her for a long moment, then moved on. But Maya could feel eyes on her from all directions. Whispers spread through the formation. The other cadets were talking about her, judging her, already deciding she would fail. The first day was brutal. The instructors led them through the academy's training grounds. They showed them the obstacle courses, the combat arenas, the survival chambers. Each facility looked designed to break them. "Your first test begins now," the lead instructor announced. "The basic qualification course. Complete it in under 1 hour, and you move forward. Fail, and you're sent home." Maya's heart sank as she looked at the course. It stretched across a massive training hall. Walls to climb that required reach she didn't have. Gaps to jump that seemed impossible without enhanced leg strength. Barriers that needed raw power to move. Begin. The cadets surged forward. Maya ran with them, but within seconds, she fell behind. A Krellivian warrior scaled a wall in 3 quick movements. Maya struggled to find handholds, her shorter arms making each grip harder. By the time she reached the top, half the group had finished the first section. She dropped down and kept running. The next obstacle was a pit filled with thick mud. Other cadets either jumped across or waded through with their greater height. Maya was too short to jump and too small to wade easily. The mud came up to her chest. She pushed forward, her legs burning with effort. "Look at the human." Someone laughed. "She's drowning." Maya ignored them. She focused on moving forward. 1 step, then another. She wouldn't quit. The course continued. Each obstacle was designed for being stronger and larger than her. Her muscles screamed. Her lungs burned. Blood dripped from her scraped hands. But she kept going. Above the training hall, in the observation deck, a figure watched. Kelthar stood motionless, his yellow eyes fixed on the small human struggling through the course. He was Zurathian, a species that had terrified the galaxy for thousands of years. They were the perfect hunters. Faster than Velen. Stronger than Krellivians. More patient than anyone. Kelthor was an instructor at the academy, but he rarely paid attention to cadets. They were beneath his notice. Weak, predictable, not worth his time, but this human. Something about her caught his interest. Another instructor approached him. The human will fail. Should I disqualify her now? She's too slow. Kelthor didn't respond immediately. Below, Maya had reached the final obstacle, a wall with weighted ropes. She was clearly injured. Her hands were bleeding. She could barely lift her arms. But she grabbed the rope anyway. She pulled. The weight fought her. She pulled again. Inch by inch, she climbed. Sir? The other instructor pressed. Should I stop her? No. Kelthor's voice was quiet but absolute. Let her finish. The other instructor stared at him in shock. Zarathians never defended the weak. Never. It went against their entire nature. But Kelthor's eyes remained locked on Maya as she dragged herself over the final wall and collapsed on the other side. She had finished. Last place. Barely within the time limit. But finished. As the other instructors moved to process the cadets, Kelthor turned away from the window. But his mind remained on the human who refused to quit. Something was different about this one. Something worth watching. Maya's second week at Apex Guard Academy was worse than the first. Word had spread that she barely passed the qualification course. To the other cadets, this meant one thing. She was weak. And weakness made her a target. The hazing started small. Her equipment went missing. Her rations disappeared from the mess hall. Someone reprogrammed her door lock, forcing her to sleep in the common area. Maya endured it all without complaint. She knew that showing weakness would only make things worse. But the other cadets weren't satisfied with small pranks. It happened after combat training. Maya was walking back to her quarters, exhausted from a session that pushed her to her absolute limits. She had trained in hand-to-hand combat against a Vexian who had 4 arms to her too. Every block she made, 2 more strikes got through. Her body was covered in bruises. She turned a corner in the empty corridor and found her path blocked. 3 Krellivian warriors stood waiting. Their leader, a massive male named Voctor, crossed his arms and grinned. Little human, he said. We need to talk. Maya's muscles tensed. She was trapped. Behind her, she heard more footsteps. 2 more Krellovians blocked her escape route. You don't belong here, Voctor continued. You make our class look weak. We're trying to help you understand something important. Maya asked, keeping her voice steady. That you should quit now, before you get hurt in a real training accident. His grin widened. We wouldn't want that to happen. The Krellivians moved closer, forming a circle around her. Maya's mind raced. She couldn't fight them. They each weighed 3 times what she did. If they wanted to hurt her, she couldn't stop them, but she wouldn't beg. She raised her chin and met Voctor's eyes. I'm not quitting. Voctor's smile faded. Then maybe you need a closer look at what happens to weak prey in a hunter's world. He reached for her. Don't. The single word cut through the corridor like a blade. It was spoken quietly, but it carried absolute authority. More than that, it carried something primal that made every instinct scream danger. The Krellovians froze. They turned slowly toward the source of the voice. Kelthor stood at the end of the corridor. He hadn't been there a moment ago. He simply appeared as if he had materialized from shadows. His yellow eyes glowed in the dim light. His posture was relaxed, but something about him radiated threat. Voctor's face went pale beneath his gray skin. Instructor Kelthor. We were just leaving. Kelthor's eyes fixed on each Krellivian in turn. Now, the warriors didn't argue. They didn't try to explain. They simply moved, backing away from Maya and hurrying down the corridor. Their heavy footsteps echoed as they fled. Maya had never seen Krellivians show fear before. She turned to Kelthor, confused and embarrassed. I didn't need yes you did. He walked closer, studying her with those unsettling eyes. They would have injured you badly enough to force medical withdrawal. That was their plan. I can handle myself. Against 5 Krolovian warriors? No, you cannot. He tilted his head. But that is not weakness. That is simply fact. A small blade cannot cut down a large tree. It requires different tools. Maya frowned. Why did you help me? Kelthor was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. They don't understand what you are. They see small size and no natural weapons. They think this makes you prey, and what do you see? His eyes gleamed. Something they will never comprehend. Not until it is too late. Before Maya could ask what he meant, Kelthar turned and walked away. He moved with absolute silence, despite his size. Within moments, he had vanished around a corner. Maya stood alone in the corridor, her heart still racing. What had just happened? Over the following days, Maya noticed something strange. Kelthar was always nearby. Not obviously. Not in a way that drew attention. But he was there. During weapons training, she spotted him watching from the upper observation deck. In the mess hall, he sat 3 tables away, seemingly focused on his meal, but positioned where he could see her clearly. During field exercises in the Academy's wilderness zones, she caught glimpses of movement in the shadows that could only be him. The other instructors noticed too. Maya overheard a conversation between 2 of them as she passed a doorway. Kelthar is spending too much time watching that human cadet. I know. It's unusual. Zarathians don't take interest in weak prey. It goes against their nature. Should we report it to command? Report what? That he's watching a cadet? He hasn't broken any rules. But still, it's strange. Maya tried to ignore it. She focused on her training, pushing herself harder each day. She couldn't match the other cadets in strength or speed, but she could outwork them. While they rested, she practiced. While they slept, she studied tactical manuals. The next major test came during survival training. The entire class was dropped in a hostile wilderness zone filled with dangerous predators. They had to survive for 3 days with minimal equipment and reach an extraction. 50 kilometers away, Maya's squad consisted of 5 cadets. Within the first hour, they made their opinion of her clear. We're not slowing down for the human, one of them said. If she can't keep up, that's her problem. They set a brutal pace. Maya struggled to match their longer strides. By nightfall, they had left her behind completely. She found herself alone in the dark forest, without supplies or backup. The night sounds began. Rustling in the bushes, distant roars, the snap of branches. Maya climbed a tree and wedged herself between 2 thick branches. She couldn't sleep. She had to stay alert. Something moved below. A large predator, drawn by the scent of other cadets who had passed through. It circled her tree, sniffing the air. Maya held perfectly still, barely breathing. The creature eventually moved on. But Maya knew more would come. She needed a solution that didn't rely on fighting. She thought about the combat lectures, about predator behavior, about what drew them and what repelled them. Then she remembered something from Earth. From her training in wilderness survival before she left for the academy, she climbed down and gathered materials. Sharp stones, vine, branches. She worked quickly, building simple traps and barriers. Nothing that would kill the predators, but things that would discourage them or alert her if they approached. As she worked, she felt eyes on her. She looked up into the darkness and saw 2 yellow lights reflecting in the trees. Kelthar. He was watching her from the shadows. But he didn't help. He didn't interfere. He simply observed. Maya continued her work. By morning, she had created a defensive perimeter around a small clearing. She had also built a simple snare that caught a small animal for food. She cooked it carefully, keeping the fire small and using techniques to minimize smoke. 3 days later, she reached the extraction point. She was the last from her squad to arrive, but she arrived uninjured and with energy to spare. Her squad mates looked exhausted from fighting off predators all night and traveling without proper rest or food. At the extraction point, Kelthar stood with the other instructors. His eyes met Maya's across the clearing. For just a moment, Something that might have been approval flickered in his expression that night. Back at the academy, Maya returned to her quarters and found a package waiting. Inside was a Zerathian field manual on survival hunting tactics. There was no note, but Maya knew who had left it. She opened the book and began to read. If the galaxy's greatest hunter thought she was worth teaching, maybe she really did belong here after all. The morning announcement came over every speaker in the academy. All cadets were to report to the Central Assembly Hall immediately. Maya joined the crowd, flowing through the corridors, wondering what this was about. Emergency assemblies were rare. The hall was packed. Maya squeezed into a space near the back. On the raised platform at the front, the Academy Council sat in their ceremonial seats. 5 senior members representing different species and military traditions. In the center sat Commander Jor-El, a Thros with silver scales that marked his age and experience. Cadets, Commander Jor-El's voice carried across the silent hall. We are here to address a matter of Academy standards. It has been brought to our attention that one cadet's qualifications are in question. Maya's stomach dropped. She knew what was coming. Maya Chen stepped forward. Every head turned to look at her. Hundreds of eyes from dozens of species. Maya forced herself to walk down the aisle toward the platform. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. She stopped before the council and stood at attention. Cadet Chen, Commander Jor-El continued. Your physical performance ranks in the bottom 5% of your class. Your combat scores are barely passing. Several instructors have expressed concerns about whether you meet Academy standards. Sir, I have passed every required test within minimum margins, another council member interrupted. A Kralovian general with scars covering his arms. This academy trains the galaxy's elite guardians. We cannot afford weak links. The council has decided to invoke the challenge trial, Commander Jor-El announced. This is your opportunity to prove your worth beyond physical measurements. You will face a scenario designed by this council. Pass, and questions about your qualifications will end. Fail, and you will be removed from the academy. Maya's jaw tightened. I understand, sir. What is the challenge? You will enter a simulation. Your objective is to defend a settlement of civilians while resolving a conflict between 2 hostile factions. Both factions have military capabilities. Both have refused all previous peace attempts. The settlement is trapped between them. You will have limited resources and for hours to achieve success. The Kralovian general smiled coldly. Previous cadets who faced this simulation used military force to eliminate both factions and evacuate the civilians. That is the expected solution. Let's see how a human handles it. Maya realized what they had done. They had designed a scenario that required exactly what she lacked: overwhelming military force. They wanted her to fail. When do I begin? She asked. Immediately. The council will observe from the control room. They led Maya to the simulation chamber, a massive room that could generate holographic environments. Technicians fitted her with neural feedback gear that would make the simulation feel completely real. Any damage she took would register as pain, though it wouldn't cause actual injury. You may begin, Commander Jor-El's voice came through the speakers. The chamber flickered and transformed. Maya stood in a small settlement of basic buildings. Around her, holographic civilians moved about their daily activities. In the distance, she could see military encampments on 2 hills, facing each other across the valley. The settlement sat directly between them. Maya accessed the simulation database. She studied everything available about the 2 factions. The Renderins and the Tosk. They had been fighting for 3 generations over territory rights. Both sides had legitimate claims. Both sides had suffered losses. Both sides refused to back down. In the control room above, the council watched on screens. The Kralovian general crossed his arms. She's wasting time. The factions will attack in 90 minutes. Let's see what the human does, Commander Jor-El said quietly. Maya made her decision. She wouldn't use military force. She would try something else. She approached the settlement leaders and explained that she needed volunteers. When they asked for what, she told them her plan. Some thought she was crazy. but a few agreed to help. Maya sent messages to both faction leaders using the settlement's communication array. She requested a meeting under a flag of truce. Both sides refused. She sent another message, and another. She was persistent. Finally, reluctantly, both sides agreed to send representatives. Though they refused to meet each other, Maya met with the Renderin representative first. She listened to their grievances. Their ancestors had lived on this land for centuries. The task had arrived later and claimed rights to the same territory. Years of conflict had hardened positions on both sides. Then she met with the task representative. Their story was different, but equally valid. They had been driven from their original homeworld. They had refugee rights to settle here. The Renderins refused to share space that was large enough for both groups. In the control room, council members grew impatient. Time was running out. "She's just talking," one of them said. "The factions will begin their assault soon. She needs to take action." But Commander Jor-El leaned forward, interested. "Wait, look at what she's doing." Maya had gathered intelligence from both meetings. She had identified the core issue. Both sides had legitimate claims, but neither side trusted the other enough to negotiate. Fear and pride kept them locked in conflict. She returned to the settlement and worked with her volunteers. They helped her put together a proposal. Not a peace treaty, either side would accept that. Something else. Maya sent a third message to both factions. This time, she wasn't inviting them to talk to each other. She was inviting them to talk to her about a mutual threat. She explained that long-range scans had detected an incoming asteroid storm that would devastate the entire valley within 2 days. It was a complete fabrication, but the simulation AI accepted it as a valid tactical move. Both factions verified the scans and realized the threat was real. Suddenly, their territorial dispute seemed less important than survival. Maya proposed a temporary alliance. Both factions had different strengths. The Renderins had better shield technology. The task had superior evacuation ships. Working together, they could save everyone. Fighting each other would doom them all. The faction leaders agreed to meet, not to negotiate territory, but to coordinate survival efforts. In the control room, the Krelovian general stood abruptly. "That's cheating." She fabricated the asteroid threat. "She used available resources creatively," Commander Jor-El corrected. The simulation AI accepted her action as valid. On the screens, they watched as Maya coordinated the two factions. Renderins and Task worked side by side to evacuate the settlement. Through the process, old enemies began talking to each other. Shared purpose began to crack the walls of mistrust. By the time the evacuation was complete, something unexpected had happened. The two faction leaders were discussing long-term cooperation. The fabricated crisis had created real dialogue. The simulation ended. Maya stood in the empty chamber, breathing hard. The neural feedback had made everything feel intensely real. She wasn't sure if she had passed or failed. The council called her back to the assembly hall. The entire academy had gathered again, waiting for the verdict. Commander Jor-El stood before them all. "The council has reached a decision regarding Cadet Chen's challenge trial." The hall was completely silent. "The purpose of this academy is to train guardians who can protect the galaxy's citizens. We have always measured success through military capability. But Cadet Chen has reminded us that protection takes many forms." He looked directly at Maya. "You did not solve the problem the way we expected. You solved it better. You found a solution that saved lives without requiring military force. You turned enemies into allies. These are skills that the galaxy desperately needs." The Krelovian general looked displeased, but he didn't object. However, Commander Jor-El continued, "Not everyone in this academy agrees with this assessment." Before Maya could process what that meant, a figure stepped forward from the observation deck. "Kelthar," the entire assembly gasped. Zorathians never spoke at formal gatherings. They observed. They judged. They didn't participate in politics or debates, but Kelthar walked to the platform and faced the crowd. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made even the council members shift uncomfortably. "I will speak on this matter." Commander Jor-El nodded slowly. "The council recognizes Instructor Kelthar. Kelthor turned to face the assembled cadets. You see, Maya Chin is weak. You see a human without natural armor or enhanced strength? You think this makes her prey? His yellow eyes swept across the crowd. My species has hunted across this galaxy for thousands of years. We have faced every warrior species represented in this room. And we have learned one truth that you have not. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Humans are the most dangerous prey in the galaxy. Not because they are strong, but because they refuse to accept defeat. They adapt. They persist. They find solutions where we see only obstacles. We thought we were hunting them when humans first entered the stars. We learned too late that they were studying us. Kelthor looked at Maya. This human solved an impossible scenario not through force, but through understanding. She made the simulation itself work for her. She turned enemies into allies. These are the qualities that make humans terrifying to underestimate. The hall was completely silent. No one had ever heard a Zarathian speak about any species with respect, let alone admiration. 2 days after the council hearing, Maya found a message on her personal datapad. It was from Kelthor. The message was brief. Combat exercise in 3 days. I have registered as your partner. Prepare. Maya stared at the message in disbelief. Instructors never partnered with cadets in combat exercises. It was against protocol. More than that, it gave cadets an unfair advantage. So why would Kelthor do this? She soon understood why he felt it was necessary. That evening, Maya was studying in the academy library when she overheard a conversation in the next aisle. She recognized the voices of several of the top cadets from her class. The combat exercise is perfect, one of them said. It's 3 days in the wilderness. Accidents happen in the wilderness. Are you serious? Another voice asked. After what happened at the assembly, after Kelthor defended her, exactly because of that, she's making us all look weak. The Krelovian clans, the Dexian corps, even the Velen Paxil of us are being compared to a fragile human now. We need to show that she doesn't belong here.
Alf?
But if Kelthor finds out he's one instructor, we'll be careful. A training accident. She gets injured badly enough for medical withdrawal. Problem solved. Maya's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to confront them, but she knew it would accomplish nothing. They would just deny it. She needed a different approach. She went to find Kelthor. She found him in the combat training hall, practicing with bladed weapons. He moved with fluid grace, each strike perfectly controlled. When he noticed her presence, he stopped and turned. Maya Chen, I need to talk to you about the combat exercise. She hesitated, then continued. I overheard some cadets planning to injure me during the exercise. They want to force me into medical withdrawal. Kelthor's eyes narrowed. How many? I counted 5 voices. Maybe more. Names? Maya shook her head. I won't tell you their names. Kelthor tilted his head, curious. Why not? I could remove them from the academy, 'cause that would prove them right. They say I'm weak, that I need protection. If you punish them for me, I'm just confirming what they believe. Maya met his eyes. I want to face them. I want to show them they're wrong. For a long moment, Kelthor studied her. Then something that might have been approval crossed his face. Very well. Then we prepare. But you shouldn't be my partner. The other cadets already think I'm getting special treatment. I registered as your partner because of the threat. Not despite it, Kelthor interrupted. This exercise allows teams of 2. Your enemies will form an alliance against you. Without a partner, you would face impossible odds. Maya realized he was right. The exercise was a war game where teams competed to capture objectives while eliminating opponents with neural stunners. If multiple teams allied against her, she would be outnumbered from the start. Okay, she said. What do we do? Kelthor's eyes gleamed. We teach you to hunt. The next 3 days were the most intense of Maya's life. Kelthor took her to the wilderness training zones early each morning before regular classes began. He didn't teach her how to fight stronger opponents. He taught her how to make fighting unnecessary. Zarathian hunting is not about strength, he explained. It is about patience. about understanding your prey better than they understand themselves, about making them defeat themselves. He showed her how to read terrain, how to identify advantageous positions, and create traps from natural materials. He taught her how to move silently, how to mask her presence, how to make opponents second-guess what they saw. Your size is an advantage, not a weakness, he said. You can hide in places they cannot. You can move through spaces they cannot navigate. You can endure conditions they find unbearable. He also taught her about psychology. Your enemies expect you to be afraid. They expect you to hide and run. Use their expectations against them. Make them chase you into ground of your choosing. On the second day, he taught her about misdirection. Make noise in one direction while moving in another. Leave false trails. Create the illusion of weakness while preparing strength. On the third day, he taught her the most important lesson. Remember, you cannot defeat them in direct combat. Do not try. Instead, make them waste their energy fighting shadows while you accomplish your objectives. Maya absorbed everything. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt like she had tools that matched her abilities. Not trying to compete with strengths she didn't have, but using skills that were uniquely hers. The day of the combat exercise arrived. The entire class was transported to a massive wilderness preserve. The area covered hundreds of square kilometers of dense forest, rocky hills, and river valleys. 3 objectives were scattered across the map control, points that teams needed to capture and hold. The rules were simple. Teams of 2. Neural stunners that would simulate kills in a 3-day time limit. The team that controlled the most objectives at the end would win. As Maya and Kelthar prepared their equipment, she noticed groups of cadets gathering together, exchanging signals. They were forming an alliance, just as Kelthar had predicted. She counted at least 6 teams, 12 cadets, who seemed to be coordinating. They'll come for us first, Maya said quietly. Yes, Kelthar agreed. That is their mistake. The exercise began. Teams scattered into the wilderness. Maya and Kelthar moved quickly toward the most remote objective, a control point deep in the forest. Won't they expect us to go for the easiest target? Maya asked as they moved. They expect you to go for the easiest target? They expect me to fight directly. We will do neither. Kelthar paused, listening to the forest. The game is not to hold objectives. The game is to control the battlefield. Over the next hours, Maya began to understand his strategy. They didn't try to capture objectives. Instead, they positioned themselves between objectives and the central staging area. They created a network of observation points and false trails. When the first team of allied cadets came through, searching for them, Maya and Kelthar simply vanished. The cadets found signs of their passage: broken branches, disturbed ground but no targets. They wasted hours searching. Meanwhile, Maya used the terrain to her advantage. She was small enough to climb trees that wouldn't support larger species. She could squeeze through narrow passages in the rocks. She moved quietly through underbrush that would reveal bigger cadets. Kelthar taught her how to observe without being seen. From hidden positions, they watched the allied teams search for them. They learned their patterns, their communication styles, frustrations. On the second day, Maya put her training to use. One team of Krelevine warriors was searching a river valley. Maya created a false trail leading toward a cliff edge. She made it obvious to many broken branches, too much disturbed mud. It looked like someone had fled in panic. The Krelovians followed the trail eagerly. They were so focused on the pursuit that they didn't notice the real danger: Kelthar, positioned above them. He eliminated both with neural stunners before they knew he was there. You used their assumptions against them, Kelthar said as they regrouped. They saw a panicked trail and assumed you were fleeing. They never considered it might be bait. The elimination of that team sent a message. The alliance began to fragment. Teams started worrying about their own success rather than group objectives. On the third day, Maya noticed another team closing in on an objective. She recognized them: Velen hunters, fast and skilled. Kelthar could eliminate them easily, but he held back. Your move? He said to Maya. What do you do? Maya studied the situation. The Velen were expecting an ambush. They moved carefully, watching for threats. She couldn't surprise them with force, but she could surprise them with something else. She approached their position openly. Hands raised. The Velen trained their weapons on her immediately.
8.
Maya called out. I want to talk. The lead Velen, a female named Syrinx, narrowed her eyes. Talk? This is combat exercise. Exactly. And you're being used. Maya kept her hands visible. Look at the standings. While everyone's been focused on hunting me and Kelthor, 3 other teams have captured all the objectives. The alliance that formed against us is falling apart, but the damage is done. You've all been wasting time on revenge instead of winning. Syrinx glanced at her partner, uncertain. What are you proposing? Temporary truce. Just until we deal with the teams actually winning. After that, we compete fairly. Why would we trust a human? Maya smiled slightly. Because Kelthor trusts me. And you know what that means? The Velen looked past Maya to where Kelthor stood in the shadows, watching but not interfering. The sight of him made their decision easy. They agreed to the truce. Over the next hours, Maya helped coordinate strikes against the teams holding objectives. She didn't fight Kelthor, and the Velen handled combat. But Maya planned the approaches, identified weaknesses, and created strategies. When they captured the first objective, the Velen looked at her with new respect. You're a better tactician than fighter, Syrinx admitted. That's the point, Maya replied. As the exercise entered its final hours, Maya and Kelthor held 2 of the 3 objectives. The Velen held the third, honoring their agreement to compete fairly at the end.